Amazy.io is an open-source WebOps provider. Our WebOps platform helps companies manage, host, monitor, update, and secure websites and apps more easily and cost-effectively than ever before. We do the hard parts so you don't have to. Amazy.io is powered by Lagoon, the web application platform for Kubernetes. Let's take a tour of Lagoon. First, let's take a look at the Lagoon Ui. Here, we get a basic overview of the project, when it was created, the repository URL, and information about branches, pull requests, and environments. Here we can see our current environments. Let's look at our main production branch. We can see we have information about our project's environment. We have the type of environment, which is production. Typically, you'll have just one production environment unless you're doing something advanced like blue-green deployments. We have the deployment type, which is what told this deployment to trigger. In this case, it's a branch deployment, meaning that a specified branch was pushed. And we have the date it was created, along with the last deployment. We also have the Git branch link and any routes generated for the environment. Here we just have the Nginx route, so this will show us the hosted site. Here we have an Umami Drupal demo site, and it's hosted on Amazy.io. Let's continue our tour of the UI. We'll look at the Deployment tab. Here we can start a new deployment or check out the results of any previous deployment. There is a brief overview here, and if we click through, we can see the full logs of the deployment. Let's start a deployment in the UI. Start by clicking the Deploy button. If we refresh the page, we can see our deployment is running. Fast forward a couple minutes, and our deployment is complete, and we can click through to see the detailed logs. Next, let's take a look at the Backups tab. Here we can access and download all of the current backups for each container. For this environment, we have Nginx and MariaDB backups. And as this banner encourages us, let's check out the Tasks section. Here we have a variety of common tasks preloaded into the UI so that you can easily run basic just tasks. Let's generate a login link. We select the task from the drop-downs. The environment that we are in, main, is already set. Click Add Task, and it starts. If we refresh the page, we can now see our task in the list. And now that it ran successfully, let's get that login link. And here is our link, ready to be copied into our browser. And now we're logged into our demo site. We have two new features that are a part of our Insights suite, Problems and Facts. Problems is a feature that allows users to view any security issues detected in any dependencies on their site. It's powered by Trivy and provides full information on each vulnerability. Similarly, the Facts feature allows users to view all kinds of information about their site. For this Drupal site, we're looking at all of the modules on the site along with their status. Different sources can be configured to show information here depending on the needs of the user. Now that we've seen the UI, let's talk about how Lagoon works. There are a couple of files that are crucial to how Lagoon works. We'll start with dockercompose.yaml. If you've used Docker Compose before, this file should look familiar. Docker Compose is used to define our local environment. One of the great things about Lagoon is that we run the exact same containers in development and production, so never again will you hear a developer say, well, it works on my machine. For a standard Drupal installation, we'll define Nginx, PHP, MariaDB, and CLI services. This tells Lagoon which containers should be built, along with information such as which images to use and where to build persistent storage. The other file we use to set up Lagoon is lagoon.yaml. It contains a variety of configuration for your project, including the definitions of routes to access your site, pre- and post-rollout tasks, SSL certificates, and cron jobs. We can do a lot with this file. Here's a pretty standard lagoon.yaml file. First, we tell it which Docker Compose file to use. We define the project here, that's example DrupalCon Portland 2022. Then we define some tasks. This one is commented out, but if we were to use it, this task would run after the images have been successfully built, but before the project has been altered in any way. This task runs a drush SQL dump in the CLI container, giving a fresh backup. Next, we have post-rollout tasks. These tasks run after all images have been successfully built, all containers are updated with the new images, and all containers are running and have passed their readiness checks. This post-rollout task is a really helpful one. It checks to see if Drupal is installed and that we're not on the main branch. It then syncs the database and files from the main branch. The following tasks then run drush config import, drush updb, and drush cache rebuild. Next, we define our cron jobs. Here, we have a cron job that runs drush cron every 15 minutes. Finally, we configure Lagoon Sync, which is a tool that allows for data syncing between Lagoon environments. This tool is especially helpful if you are not using a CMS like Drupal that has an existing tool like Drush. The config here tells Lagoon Sync where to find the database and files. There is a lot more that can be done with Lagoon.yaml, so read our documentation if you'd like to learn more. Now let's take a look at how a Lagoon deployment works. This is where the magic happens. First, let's pull up our local site. To build our images, we run docker compose build. When that's complete, we start our containers with docker compose up. Since this is a composer site, we're going to do a quick composer install. And now, if we visit the route we defined in our docker compose file, we should see our site. So now our local site is running. Let's deploy our site. We're going to trigger this deployment with a git commit. We haven't made any changes, so we'll just push an empty commit. Git is now notifying Lagoon about this push via webhooks. Now we'll start to see notifications wherever we have them configured, in this case, a Slack channel. This can take a few seconds to a few minutes. We can also check on the progress of the deployment in the UI. Now we can see in Slack that the deployment is complete, which branch was deployed, the git SHA of the commit, a link to the deployment logs, and the routes for this environment. Clicking on the Nginx route brings us right to our site. And there you have it, a quick tour of Lagoon and its features. If you'd like to know more, talk to us at our booth.